Welcome to our video on the difference between speed and velocity. In the last chapter, we had learned about the difference between a scalar quantity and a vector quantity. A scalar quantity only has a magnitude, a number to it with a unit usually, and a vector is a quantity that has both magnitude and direction. Can you remember a few examples? We had things like time, t, or mass, or density, or volume, or area. These were examples of scalars. Do you remember a few that we introduced when we talked about vectors? We talked about velocity, which we're going to introduce now, or displacement, or acceleration, or force. Those were examples of vectors that you will see in the coming units. So one of the main differences between speed and velocity is that speed is just simply describing the fastness or the slowness of an object. It's just the number and its units. Whereas the velocity is describing how fast or slow it's going, and it's also talking about what direction. In terms of defining it more specifically, the average speed is simply the distance divided by the time. You'll see that there are no vectors in here. So I could say, for example, a person is running, say, 30 miles per hour, or a car is going, say, 80 kilometers per hour. Those would just be telling me how fast you go. It's like what you see with the speedometer in a car. But the average velocity is the rate of change of the displacement rather than the rate of change of the distance. So it's the amount of displacement delta x, with a vector sign here, divided by the time interval delta t. So now you would have to say not only the speed, say like 20 miles per hour, but you would also have to say the direction, like north, or 80 kilometers per hour, and you could say something like east. So you have to have not only a magnitude, but you have to have a direction as well. If you're just indicating the magnitude of the velocity, then you're really just indicating the speed and simply just use a v. If we're indicating the speed and the direction, then you should be using a v with an arrow above it to indicate that it's a velocity. Now, one should note that on the AP Physics B exam, both average speed and average velocity are used quite interchangeably. Often we just think of the speed as the magnitude of this number. So we might say, what is the average speed? And we just want 20 miles per hour here. One just quick conceptual question to ponder. Does a constant speed imply a constant velocity? Think about that for a moment. If you were going at constant speed, it would mean that you're not changing how fast you're moving. You'd be going, say, at 30 miles per hour or 80 kilometers per hour the whole time. But would that mean that you're also going at constant velocity? Which means that you're going that speed, but also the same direction? No. If you were going at constant velocity, you have to maintain the same speed, but also go in a straight line. So constant velocity implies constant speed, but a constant speed does not mean necessarily you're going at a constant velocity, because you could be going in a circle, for example, at like 30 miles per hour and changing your direction continuously, and therefore your velocity is changing because you're changing direction. We'll get into that in a lot more detail when we deal with circular motion. Okay, and that's it for this video.